good morning from wherever you are joining. Thank you all for joining and just sharing this very valuable, important conversation that the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and our friends at the USAA Educational Foundation are so very passionate about, and that is financial wellness. Um, my name is Natasha Swayze. I am a program specialist at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. I do primarily work in the financial wellness department, where my passion truly lies. But before we dive into the meat and potatoes and just have this open, honest conversation about money and budgeting and debt and all things financial wellness, I will turn it over to Katie to let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm so proud to work with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and promote financial well-being for caregivers. My name is Katie Casey Macias. I'm a certified financial planner professional, and I work for the USAA Educational Foundation. I'm also a military spouse. My husband is on active duty in the Air Force, and I have a background in social work from before I became a financial planner. The mission of the USAA Educational Foundation is to lead and inspire actions that improve financial readiness for the military community. We're a separate 501c3 nonprofit, so we don't promote any excuse me, any commercial products or services. Um, and one other little disclaimer for today, while I am a CFP professional, my presentation today is not intended to give any individual or legal tax advice. And if you have individual questions, I encourage you to seek advice from a financial, tax, or legal advisor in your community. Over
Thank
to
you
you,
for that.
Natasha.
Thank you, Katie, for that introduction. We are so fortunate to be able to share the tools that were created through the USA Educational Foundation for caregivers and military families. And what I think so valuable about those tools is you all took the input of what caregivers needed
Yep.
and listened and created these wonderful tools that I would love for you to share with us.
Absolutely. So we started working on the caregiver financial journey. I want to say about a year and a half ago. It's been a long process, and we launched it at the caregiver convening last September. It has been a labor of love, and through research, through meeting with caregivers, through focus groups and interviews, we really wanted to create a resource that was for and by caregivers. So the caregiver page consists of a couple different components. First, we have a learning guide, and this covers foundational personal financial topics like budgeting and understanding credit and debt, insurance, saving for the future, and estate planning are kind of the big ones. Um, there's pages for each of these topics, and you can dig in and you can learn more about things that are especially important or relevant for you. The topics have been tailored for military and veteran caregivers, and we know that this is you're a diverse group, and so we want to make sure that the content is makes sense whether you're a spouse caregiver or a parent caregiver, a child caring for their parent, or a family or friend that is taking care of your loved one. So we want to really keep that broad spectrum of caregivers in mind. And we want to make sure that this is a tool that can be useful for everyone. The learning guide has a range of types of information. We have uh, pages on the website that you can read. There's calculators, videos, worksheets, and some other resources mixed in there. You can access this anytime. It's available, publicly available online all the time. And so I encourage you to go through it based on your needs and your interests. We also have what's called a caregiver financial health assessment. That's kind of the second major component where you can do a little diagnostic and check in with yourself and see kind of where you are now and maybe where you want to go in the future. So my major point here is no matter what stage you're in for caregiving, your financial wellness matters and it's important. And there's things you can do at every stage to improve your financial well-being.
I love that, Katie. Thank you. And what I love about the tools is I do feel like it's truly inclusive to where our caregivers are in their journey and their financial wellness. And it's user
Absolutely.
friendly, which I like
Yep.
because as someone who's not very tech savvy, it's truly an easy, um, tool to navigate.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to hear that. And we really want to make this accessible and really promote financial well-being for everyone.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to hop into breaking down these important topics that we know that our caregivers, the feedback that we get from them on. One of them is budgeting, and I learned from you that you love to budget on Friday nights. Uh,
Oh, you're stealing my thunder. I do. We'll get to that.
um, so I would love to hear more about budgeting and how caregivers can start budgeting. I know sometimes there's this big misconception of, being on, lots of our caregivers are on fixed incomes
Hmm.
and may have little resources. So they feel like maybe they don't have as much money to budget. But what we know is there isn't a certain amount of money anyone can budget, fixed income or not. And I really
Absolutely.
love that you're going to speak on that. I could hear your passion yesterday about budgeting doing during Friday nights. So,
Yes. Yes, you're stealing my thunder, Natasha. So we'll get to the Friday night thing in just a minute, but budgeting is one of my favorite financial topics, and the reason is that I think it is so empowering and impactful, and you can start seeing the benefits of it right away. So I think um, budgeting is a wonderful thing, and I hope I can share some of that enthusiasm with you here today. Um, Everyone should have a budget. As like Natasha said, it's not about the amount of money that you're bringing in or the amount of money you have. It's about managing what you do have and knowing and understanding uh, what your day-to-day income and expenses are looking like. So sometimes we do hear that where people will say, I don't have enough money to budget, or I lived on a fixed income, and that's really a myth that we want to dispel. Um, the reasoning is that when you know what money is coming in, what money is coming out from whatever sources, if it's income, or if it's pension related, or if it's benefit related, it's important to know what's coming in and what's going out so that you can really prioritize and allocate where your money goes. It can give you a sense of control when maybe some other areas of your life you don't have that much control or ability to shift things around. But this is something that you can really get your hands around, and that you can understand and you can manage. Um, there are a lot of ways to budget. You know, as many ways as you can think of. People use for budgeting. You can use just pen and paper. There's spreadsheets. There's apps. We're on the Ed Foundation page. We're going to have a really awesome digital tool coming out very soon. Hopefully in the next week or two. That will help you walk you through a budget, and then you can at the end you can have a downloadable worksheet. Um, the point is that there are many ways to budget, and there is no one right way to do it. So the important thing is to find a method that you like. Um, and if you try something like an app, you don't like it, find something else that works for you. The point is that you need to do the budget, not just do it a certain way. So find the method that you're most comfortable with in terms of technology or not, and stick with that. And it takes some time. It takes some practice. Budgeting is not a one and done activity. It's something that you need to come back to regularly, build a habit, make it part of your regular routine, so that you can kind of track your progress over time. And as time goes by, it's kind of like exercising and working out. As time goes by, you maybe get a little more comfortable, you get a little more familiar, and you start to see some of those changes, and feel a little bit better, and different about your finances than you did before. So, like Natasha said, my favorite time to budget is Friday night, and I get so much grief from coworkers and others about this, but it's true. I really, at the end of the work week, for me, it's the end of my work week. I like to close out the work week with a little budget update. I know what's gone in maybe potentially for that week, what's going out. I can check to make sure bills are being paid on time, and if anything looks strange. And like in terms of what money is coming in, you want to make sure that what's coming in is the right amount and at the right time. And we know mistakes happen, and budgeting is one way to track that. So I encourage everybody to give it a try, find the method that works for you. If you don't know where to start, check out the budgeting page on the caregiver journey map or the caregiver financial journey. And we have a worksheet there that is a really great, easy way to get started. And I suggest giving that a try and then going from there and seeing what works best for you.
I love that. And then, I think it does make us feel good once we really know where we stand
Hmm.
financially.
Yep,
And I truly and wholeheartedly believe that financial wellness and mental wellness go hand in hand.
absolutely.
And so I've, had wonderful testimonies of people's mental health even improving when they
Yeah.
really have their financial affairs in order.
Absolutely. And you don't know until you know where you stand, as you say, Natasha, and you know what's coming in and out. It's hard to make changes, and it's hard if you have goals. We're going to talk about goals here in a few minutes, but if there's things that you're trying to accomplish, but you don't really know where you stand right now, it's really hard to work towards those things in a meaningful way. Um, Another topic that is related to budgeting that you definitely will see in your budget is debt. And a lot of us have debt that we're paying off from different sources, maybe a car payment or credit card debt, that sort of thing. And there are times when debt can be really just a drag on yourself, on your finances, and it's challenging. If you're interested in paying down debt faster, or if you want to learn more about some ways to do that, on the Ed Foundation page, we have a program called Debt Destroyer, and it's a six-step program. It includes videos and a workbook and an online calculator, and it walks you through kind of how to address your debt and helps provide some um, options for maybe you've heard of like a debt snowball or a debt avalanche method to pay off debt. So it gives you some real numbers where you can enter your own information and get some real results on how to tackle debt and how to pay it off sooner, saving you some money in the long term and also helping improve your credit reputation. So I encourage you, if debt is something that you're thinking of and you want to try to address for your family, I'd suggest taking a peek at Debt Destroyer on our website as well.
I love that. We actually had a caregiver who Um, we do budgets with our caregivers,
Hmm.
and our mental wellness, and they were able to pay off their home,
Wow,
by using a budget. Now that may not be that's a pretty substantial goal for most people, um,
absolutely.
but uh, to see it be done with, a fixed income and very, little money coming in, it was just a huge testimony that those tools, if used wisely and appropriately, can truly help in financial wellness.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic example of setting a goal and then building a mechanism behind it to make that goal a reality. And I'm sure for that caregiver, that didn't happen overnight. That took planning, it took perseverance, determination, and saying no to some things that maybe in the past they wouldn't have said no to. So, we all have a limited amount of resources coming in, and many of us have lots of things that we would like for our resources and our money to go toward, but we all have to make choices. And so, part of that process of making choices is setting financial goals. So, financial goals can be huge, like paying off your mortgage and paying off your house, or it can be much smaller things like, maybe saving for an emergency fund or saving for, a family vacation to a lake or a cabin or something of that nature. Or maybe it's saving, you know, it could be anything. Whatever is the right goal for you is the right goal for you.
I
Um,
was thinking real quick, I've heard a lot of caregivers, some of their goals are simply just making sure their bills are paid on time. And
Absolutely.
that's a very good goal. Um, and maybe it's just one bill that you need to get paid on time. But
Right.
so goals, that's what I love. They're so personable, and
Mhm.
they can be as little or big as you want them to be.
Absolutely, and that's a fantastic example of a goal that fits somebody's situation. If your goal is to make sure, I don't want to have any late fees, or I don't want to have like an overdraft, potentially an overdraft penalty on any bills. Make yourself a calendar and know when your bills need to be paid. And there's lots of ways to do it. You can do auto pay if you want. You can make a reminder in your calendar. You can link those accounts. The important thing is that by making that goal, by writing it down and making it a priority, you are improving your financial well-being every time you pay that bill on time. By taking that action and taking that initiative to make sure that you are taking care of your finances, you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your loved ones, and you're taking care of your financial health too. So I'd encourage anybody to set goals, think about what's right for you, and think about what you're trying to accomplish. It doesn't have to be a huge thing like paying off a mortgage. It could be making sure that you're saving $5 a week for your rainy day fund. But think about what those things are right for you. Maybe it's saving money for back to school supplies, for example, or um, new clothes for yourself or for your other loved ones. So it's unique to who you are and where you are in your life. Um, when we talk about goals, one of the ways that we frame goals is using the acronym SMART. We want to set goals that are SMART, meaning they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Um, like we talked about already, the key thing is that no goal is too small. You can make SMART goals for any type of goal. Um, we have a worksheet on our website called the Smart Savings Worksheet, and I think they'll put that link in the chat for you, and it will walk you through every step of the process. It's a really great tool. There's other tools out there that go through the same process, but um, your financial goals are not different than any other type of goal. You want to make sure that it's achievable and it's something that matters for your life.
Thank you for that, Katie.
Mhm.
There is when I'm thinking about goals and goal setting, the conversation comes up about how to communicate your goals with your care recipient while
Mhm.
also being mindful of, going back to all caregivers are different, right?
Right.
Caregivers are parents to their children, they are spouses, they are friends, they are aunts and uncles.
Yep.
Um, and especially if we're talking about communicating with someone with cognitive decline, um,
Yeah.
or someone who maybe doesn't have the same goals that we do.
Mhm.
How do we navigate that?
Yeah. That is a fantastic question, and it's hard. It is challenging to talk about financial matters. All of us have different experiences around money and grew up in different environments and with different kinds of expectations about money. So first of all, I would say, try to understand the other person's perspective. Like what motivates them? Why do they to have those conversations? Start small by asking, why do they believe the things that they do? Um, One thing that we often like to say is that budgeting is a team sport. And that doesn't mean only in like a partnership relationship, like a spouse relationship. It's also a team sport if you are taking care of someone and helping to help them manage their finances. It's important to understand what their wishes are and what their goals are, and work through that together to help ensure a good outcome. For someone when you're working with someone that maybe has cognitive decline and their capacity to continue to manage their finances moving forward might um, deteriorate over time, it's important to have those conversations early to understand and clarify that person's wishes and their plans, understand what their spending looks like. Unfortunately, people with cognitive decline do sometimes tend to be more likely to be victims of financial abuse and of scams. And so it's important to help protect these people, and it's important um, to make sure that their financial security is taken care of, um, despite cognitive decline or illness or injury. So we actually did a Facebook Live last spring that specifically talked about this topic, and it's available both on Elizabeth Dole Foundation's Facebook page and YouTube. So I'd encourage you. We go into much more depth on it, and so I'd encourage you to go check that one out too, because it's another really great resource.
That's great. Thank you for that, Katie.
Yeah.
And then working with caregivers again, one of a lot of their goals is to reestablish their emergency fund.
Yep.
We know that a lot of caregivers leave their employment to care for their
Hmm.
loved one. They drain savings accounts. They use their retirement. Lots of them don't have retirement anymore.
Yep.
So feeling like um, building back an emergency fund
Hmm.
can just seem so daunting to do.
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Um,
This
how did
absolutely.
how can they go about setting up, an emergency fund again after, lots of their savings has been depleted?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And I've absolutely heard that too, and seen worked with people that have experienced that where they've had to draw down savings, they've had to access resources because of a transition like caregiving, and it's really difficult. It's disrupting to your life, and it's a hard thing to get through, but you can get through it. Um, so this feeds back into our conversation about setting goals. An emergency fund is another goal. To have a fully funded emergency fund is financial planners. Our recommendation is that you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses set aside in a separate account, like a savings or a money market account that is strictly used for emergencies. Now, um, one way you might know what your living expenses are through your budget. So take a look at that. This everything, a lot of things come back to this budget, and I'm going to keep kind of pointing towards that because that's really going to tell you where your money's going and where maybe you have a little bit of extra every month or every couple weeks to put into that emergency fund. Um, Go through the SMART goals worksheet and see, how does this apply to me? How can I look at the money that I have coming in? What can I set aside for emergencies? And where can I potentially make some adjustments to add a little bit more of a cushion to my emergency fund? Um, Again, it's not something that happens overnight. Just like paying off a mortgage or paying off a credit card, it takes time, it takes effort and determination. But with that perseverance and sticking with it, you will see those results over time. Um, our recommendation is that fully funded emergency fund is 3 to 6 months. A good place to start is try to have $1,000 set aside to start with. Now we're getting close now to tax time, so one way that you could potentially do that is if you get a tax return, that might be a great place for that tax return to go to bulk up that emergency fund. Um, Maybe take a peek at your budget and see where some adjustments could be made for some of those nice to haves that might be like I know that we have streaming services that maybe we don't need a couple of them, dining out, entertainment, those kinds of things where there's maybe some wriggle room to take some of those funds and allocate them elsewhere if an emergency fund is important to you. And emergencies happen to everybody. It's not a matter of if it happens; it's when it happens. And it might be like a big transition, like becoming a caregiver, where all of a sudden that income that you had coming in consistently isn't happening anymore, and you need to use that emergency fund. It could be the flat tire and the broken refrigerator. And for us recently we had to replace our HVAC in our house, and that wasn't on my list of things to do, but something, having an emergency fund on hand takes away some of that stress and that pressure. um and the other thing, we talked about debt a little bit earlier. Having that money set aside can help prevent you from having to rely on credit card debt to cover these kinds of things, because we know in the long term you're adding interest cost to that and extending that payoff period, which can cause more financial stress down the road. So, an emergency fund is a really great goal. It's something to prioritize if you don't have one. Um, Keep it in that separate account. It's for emergencies only, and just little by little, stick with it, and you'll get there.
And I think it's important too to realize that, maybe one month you only have $10 to throw in that account,
Yep,
another month 50. Um, I
exactly.
think just excuse me, being intentional about putting something in
Mhm.
each pay period
Yep,
can make a huge difference.
for sure. For sure. And think about,
Mhm.
you can automate it. I mean, if you get paid every couple weeks, maybe you say, you know what, at least I'm going to automate $10, $15 with every pay period to go straight into that emergency fund, and I don't even see it. It automatically goes there. And that's something that you can also track in your budget. I'm going back to the budget, that's something to really help you stay on track and also remind you of what your goals are. Remind yourself why you're doing this. Remind yourself why it's important, the peace of mind that you get from having that money set aside in the event that you need it for an emergency.
Yeah, and I think looking at those goals as often as you do your budget
Hmm.
is
It's a
so
great
helpful,
idea.
and just plaster them, everywhere, and it's such a great reminder of why you are doing what you are doing.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and, with thinking of setting up a, emergency fund and just knowing that emergencies happen, life happens,
Yep.
I am so fortunate that I am able to work, with caregivers in the critical financial assistance program where, it truly is just a a a helping hand. We're here in a critical time where we can assist our caregivers, whether, maybe needing a car repair, a house payment, a rent payment, in anything that we can take that burden off for momentarily. I love that we have our critical financial assistance to be able to do that for our caregivers.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that you don't have to do this by yourself. There are many, many organizations, especially Elizabeth Dole Foundation, that are here to help you too. You don't have to have this all figured out immediately, and you don't have to do it yourself. And when you do need some emergency assistance, definitely check out the Hope Fund and see if that's something that can help you make it through a hard time, because everybody goes through hard times and everybody needs a little bit of support and help sometimes too. So those resources are available for you there.
Yeah, and then, if it's something beyond what we can help, we do have our resource navigator
Hmm.
that, is great about finding outside resources and has built wonderful partnerships that can, be able to guide, our caregivers in in a different direction as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this is a great segue into estate planning,
Yep.
which again seems can feel, like, overwhelming, and, we don't like to talk about it really, it's
Right.
hard to talk about,
Yep.
especially when we're, talking about, um, death or folks not being able to be, um, helpful in situations where planning is necessary.
Right.
Um, we do have resources, though, for our estate planning and what really that means and what needs to be done so that we're setting ourselves up for success.
Absolutely. Yeah, and estate planning, all of these are heavy topics. Talking about financial topics and talking about something like estate planning it's a heavy topic. But not talking about it and not thinking about it and not making preparations can make the road a lot harder in the future. So when we talk about financial wellness, one of the major components of that is having an estate plan in place. And you might say, okay, well, what do you mean by estate planning? We think about estate planning as an organized roadmap that covers your legal and financial considerations and state your wishes. And it helps provide direction and insight for your loved ones when you're no longer around to care for them. So we identify five key estate planning documents. Consider them to be a will, a power of attorney, an advance medical directive, a trust, and a letter of instruction. Now, not everybody needs all of these documents, and kind of like I said at the beginning, everyone's situation is unique. I'm not an attorney. I can't provide any kind of legal advice, but it's important to consider and make sure that you have these documents in place to protect you and protect your loved one. Um, I think often the caregivers that I've talked with are so busy and focused um, and diligent taking care of their loved one, taking care of their care recipient, that they make sure that they have the coverage that they need, that their medications are taken care of, they're getting to their appointments, they're getting any therapies that they need, that maybe they have their estate planning documents in place, like a will, power of attorney, medical directive, those kinds of things. But sometimes we talk to caregivers and they don't have those things set up for themselves. So it is an act of care and love to those that you love, to have these conversations and to have these estate planning documents in place for yourself too. So it's important for the person that you're caring for, but it's also important for caregivers themselves to have a will, power of attorney, advanced medical directive, and potentially trust as well. So um, I'd encourage you to check out the our webpage for more information on this topic. And I know Elizabeth Dole Foundation has some resources specifically around a will,
You
for
do.
caregivers.
Yeah, we partnered with Free Will so that our caregivers can have wills in place because, as you said, lots of times we do it for our care recipient, but not for ourselves. And so, if they check out Free Will, which all these links will be provided, that resource will be able to help create a will for our caregivers.
Awesome.
And then I think Katie, are you good with everything you covered? I think we have lots
I
of great
am.
questions that are in our chat
Okay.
that we can go for. One of the questions, it says, "What are other financial planning tools resources does the Elizabeth Dole Foundation offer?" Um, so we do Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey. We actually have a class starting Monday, but please look for those classes in our newsletters. We plan to offer those frequently to our caregivers. We've had a couple classes and lots of success stories coming from those. Lots of great feedback. So we do encourage you to join us with the Financial Peace University. The second question, Katie, I think this one's going to be for you. It says, "I'm
Okay.
feeling overwhelmed by the process of financial planning. What's the best place to start? What's the best first step?"
Okay. That's a really great question because we're talking about all these big things and lots of things. There's a lot of things to do. It feels like there may be a lot of things to do, and it's easy to see how that can feel very overwhelming. So first thing I would say is just take a big breath and remember that you're taking it one step at a time. Everything doesn't have to be figured out at once. We talked about some foundational topics today, like budgeting and goal setting. I think that those are really, really good places to start. And as you go through your financial journey, you're going to get more comfortable and you're going to have different needs over time. So I would I would suggest starting where you are today. Think about what it is that you want to achieve. If you want um, more peace of mind knowing where your money is going every month and what's coming in and what's going out, start working on a budget. Find a system that works for you and give it a try for a while and see how that makes you feel. um, I'd say I'd start there. I'd also say, remember that this, again, it's an ongoing process. You have to give it some time, take it a step at a time. You can't do everything all at once and get everything all set up and then forget about it and never have to touch it again. So that's the first thing I'd say. And then secondly, we have kind of, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have something called the Caregiver Financial Health Assessment. And this is a component of the caregiver financial journey, and it's a robust calculator. Essentially, it's like a big calculator, and you can customize it by entering your information. It'll ask things like, what resources do you have coming in? How much is your rent or mortgage? What do you spend on groceries and utilities? You can go through the tool, and the link will be in the chat. So you enter your information, and then at the end, you're going to come up with a results screen that's going to give you some suggestions of areas that you might want to make some adjustments in, or that are within kind of a financial planner recommended range. Like, we talked about emergency funds earlier. Our perspective and recommendation is start with $1,000. That's really great. If you can get to that 3 to 6 months of a living expenses of an emergency fund, that is like 100%. If you're taking a test from our perspective, you get an A. It's 100%. So um, the caregiver financial health assessment has 6 different areas where it will give you a result based on the information you enter. This is your information and your background. It doesn't save any of the information, but it will give you a results screen at the end that covers transportation costs, saving, uh, your debt to income ratio, housing, and emergency fund. And there's a little bit in there about estate planning too. So if you want to kind of see where you're at right now, you just don't know where to start at all, that is a really, really good tool to give a try, and let it kind of guide you to say, okay, you know what, I'm doing great on my transportation costs, but maybe I need to try to save a little bit more. Maybe that emergency fund, it looks like I maybe only have 2 months of living expenses saved. Maybe I can work a little harder for a little while and get that up to that 3 to 6 months range. So I definitely check out the caregiver financial health assessment.
Thank you. That's a very helpful tool. Next question. For debt reduction, which method do you recommend? Avalanche or snowball?
That's a great question. I love that question. And the answer, like a lot of things from any financial planner, will say it depends. I mean, it 100% depends on your goals. Um, Everybody's situation is different and unique, and everybody's motivations are different and unique. If you do the math, ultimately you'll see on the tool, and the mobile tool, the mobile calculator in our debt destroyer program will show this to you. Um, Long term, the debt avalanche, you'll save some money on interest. Usually, it depends on a lot of factors like interest rate and loan terms and those kinds of things. But generally, from a cost perspective, an avalanche from the avalanche perspective, you'll save a little bit more money over the long term. So the avalanche method is when you pay off your highest interest rate debts first. You rank your debts by interest rate, you pay off the highest interest rate first. The snowball method is another popular one. With the snowball method, you rank your debts by lowest balance to highest balance, and you pay off that lowest balance debt first. Now, and then you roll like your payment into the next one and the next one and the next one until your debts are paid off. With the snowball method, that's really motivating for some people because they feel like they get that like a faster win, that debt's paid off sooner because you are focusing on a smaller balance. So either method is good. You're going to save rather than just making minimum payments on debts all the way through. You're going to save money on interest costs either way. So it really depends on what motivates you. If you really want that like a quick first win, the snowball method might be the right one for you. If you're like, I just want to get this paid off as fast as I can, going with the avalanche method might be better. So, but I would encourage everybody to check out the tool, insert your information, and see what makes sense to you. You'll get kind of like a summary of how much you'd pay total per each method, minimum payment, or if you only make minimum payments, snowball and avalanche, you'll see how much you'd pay in interest over the course, like it'll go out to 30 years, how much total you'd pay in interest, and how much, and then the wonderful thing that I really like about it is it'll tell you how long it'll take to pay off the debt. So
Yeah,
sometimes,
nice.
it can seem like, man, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to pay off that debt. It's just going to take forever. And that's not the case. You can see on the calculator, if you follow the plan in this fashion, that debt's going to be paid off in 4 years. Now that's very motivating for a lot of people. So I'd check that out. I mean, the short answer is it depends. It depends on who you are and what's important to you. And everybody's different, but just check it out and see what you like and see what might be motivating for you in your situation.
I like that. And that snowball, I thought of instant gratification when
Yeah.
you were talking about it there.
Yep.
Um, this next, do you recommend taking out a personal loan to pay off credit card debt?
So that's a good question. Again, I cannot provide any like individual advice, but what I would say whenever someone is considering paying off debt with another form of debt, I'd think very carefully about that. because that's what it sounds like. So you are taking a personal loan to pay off a credit card debt. Um, I think it depends on somebody's individual circumstances and situation. I'd proceed cautiously. Um, it would depend on factors like interest rate, the terms of both the credit card and the personal loan. And without, getting into specifics, it's hard to know if that's the right thing. But I think I would explore all avenues to pay off something like credit card debt before considering another type of debt to cover that cost. But again, situations are unique, circumstances are unique. Um, I would just think through all the factors, and no matter what type of debt you're considering taking out, I would make sure that you understand the terms, that you understand the repayment period, you understand what your obligations are to repay any debt.
Thank you for that, Katie. This next one, I really appreciate because I've had the same concern with my father. So, but it says, how do I start engaging my veteran mother and aging father on estate planning? It's so hard to start the conversation. And, just a personal snippet here. Um, Sometimes I think it's important just to have those raw, honest conversations about, assuming that our parents love us and want the best for us. What happens when that planning doesn't take place? What are the ramifications of that? What are the consequences of that? What are the stressors that will cause the person that will have to deal with the aftermath? I
Yeah,
think having those conversations and sometimes coming at it from a feeling standpoint can be
yeah,
very helpful.
yeah,
But Katie, I know you have other points that you can add there as well.
yeah. This is really hard stuff to talk about, and it's hard, especially with a parent relationship where your parents have certain backgrounds and experiences with money, and you grow up in that environment, and it can be hard to understand their perspective, and and they maybe just don't want to talk about it and don't want to think about it, or don't know maybe they don't know how to talk about it, or they don't themselves have all the knowledge or information to feel like they understand it. So I would say I would start that conversation from a place of love and compassion and understanding, and saying, look, um, we all want we all want to be on the same page. We want to be respectful and loving of you and your wishes and your plans for the future. What do you want? What are your goals? What are your plans? Um, and start the conversation that way. Start where they are, and if they're open to having that conversation, I that's where I would begin. Um, it could be a there's something maybe they don't understand. I know and I would refer back again to our Facebook Live that we had last spring, where we were talking more about like cognitive decline. It doesn't sound like this is necessarily that situation, but um, I would refer back to that presentation. There's some really great information there. Um, but I think having that conversation, providing knowledge and information that's not it's not about being judgmental or about being um, focused on the money, but it's about what someone's goals, plans, wishes, intentions are, and how you can help best help that person carry out their goals and plans and wishes um, through estate planning. And if you have trusted advisors in your area, trusted attorney, a trusted um, financial advisor that you can talk through your specific situation with, that your parent trusts as well, I think that is another really great avenue to explore to achieve those goals and talk through with your loved ones.
Thank you for that. And then I think this will be our last question.
Okay.
And it's an important one because we're in the thick of it right now, and that's tax season.
Yep.
Another hard topic.
Yeah.
Um, Do you offer any resources to help caregivers? And I learned a lot of new resources from you, Katie, so I would love
Yeah.
for you to share some.
Sure. So taxes are very complicated. Taxes can feel very, very complicated, and they can seem kind of mysterious. And we all know, tax day is coming up on April 15th. I think I saw like a countdown the other day, maybe it was yesterday, where it's like 53 days till tax filing time. So, all of us know they're coming. Maybe you're getting your tax documentation in the mail. You should have gotten your documentation by now for any benefits, pensions, those kinds of things, earned income, investment accounts, those kinds of things, those statements, you should have those statements, in your possession now as you prepare for tax time. So, taxes are not, um, we don't have a lot of information on our website, on the Ed Foundation website, specifically on taxes. But there are some really, really great programs out there and great resources that I would suggest you check out. So, the first one is called VITA. It's the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. It is run under the IRS programming, and there's different, it's volunteers that help prepare tax returns for individuals and families at certain income levels. So I would check out their webpage and see if there's a Vita a location near where you are, because that could be a great resource to help you get your taxes filed. And again, it's all volunteer. They are trained volunteers by the IRS, and your return will be certified. And it's pretty quick. I mean, I worked as a Vita volunteer a few years ago. It's a fun process. It's a great resource. They have a lot of really, really great experience and great programming. So that's number one. A second resource potentially is AARP has a tax assistance program. Uh, I think we provided their link in the chat. Their link should be in the chat as well for locations that they offer. That's another great one that potentially is in your area that could be helpful to you. And lastly, depending on where you live, I'd check out like a local library or a local community center to see if there are other local tax assistance programs that can help you understand your taxes, file, navigate, and a place that you can go if you want to do it yourself. A place that you can go to where if you have questions, they can kind of help guide and support you. And if they can't, hopefully guide you to a resource locally that can be helpful.
Great. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Well, with that, let's wrap this up. This was such a great conversation. I hope it was helpful to our caregivers that we work with every day. Um, Caregivers, please reach out to us if you have any further questions or we can be of assistance. Um, and please, this is your call to action to follow our socials. Um, the USAA Educational Foundation socials and Elizabeth Dole Foundation socials. There we will continue to post great resources, um, all kinds of resources, but
Yep.
different financial tools, webinars, classes that are upcoming. Katie, thank you so much for being a partner and friend to the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and your continued work to and for caregivers. Thank you for joining and all the information that you provided. We
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
you so much.